Good afternoon, everybody. Almost said good morning. It's a wonderful Wednesday with Don Anderson and Sunny Danforth. Say good afternoon, Sunny.
Hey, good afternoon and happy after Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry
I
Christmas,
guess it'd
everybody.
be post
Yeah,
post Merry.
post Christmas. We're still into the 12 days of Christmas, so I think it still counts.
Why not?
Why
Why
not?
not?
Right,
It's
exactly.
I know I still have my tree up and all the decorations and whatnot.
We try to play this out till about the 3rd or 4th of January. So, we'll ride that good cheer for a while.
Yeah, you know what? And why not? It's a blessed season. It's a blessed time of year.
Mhm.
And I have one of my brothers is flying into town and today and he's coming in January and I was thinking, am I going to have the decorations up still when he comes? I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't
Well,
know.
we've had years when they stayed up till the end of January. That's pretty bad, I know, but
That's okay.
that's all
I've
right.
put this year I didn't put any outside lights up.
Mhm.
And I have had those up until like February. So,
Right. Yeah.
because it's so bloody cold, right? When it's all
Sure.
snowing outside, it's not coming down.
Oh, yeah. Who wants to go out there and deal with it?
Right. Right. It's not safe.
Yeah.
So,
It's like going on vacation. It's fun leaving, but coming home is tough.
oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. So I thought I'd start us off with I found an article of this while trolling around this afternoon looking for some content to discuss with you all. And I like to go to the liberal magazines because if they're griping about something, it's got to be pretty bad for them to raise it. And this was from Newsweek. And the headline was Migrant Border Crossings this year outnumbered a population of 17 states. Now, they listed the states, and I'm not going to read those off, but it's pretty amazing. So 2.9 million, migrants in the first 11 months of 2023. It's like astonishing, and that would be illegal immigration, by the way, in case you were wondering. I'm beginning to wonder if there's any such thing as legal immigration anymore.
No, I'll tell you. That's a very good question. Is there anything? Is there people? I think there are people that are still walking or coming through that are still getting visas. I would think that that is still happening. But, I did see a headline today that the illegals that are crossing the border are getting a slip of paper that they are to come back like 4 years from now to have a hearing, show
Mhm.
up for a hearing somewhere. They tell them wherever,
Mhm.
whatever state and whatever, in 4 years. You're never going to see these people again,
No,
ever.
yeah, it's an invasion is the only way to put it, and it's one that the current administration is actively encouraging. You can hardly think of a problem that would be easier to solve than this one. You just enforce the law. You shut down the border, you build a wall, you're done with it. But that's not what they want for very obvious reasons. They're looking to buy the vote, which they've been doing for a long time. It's just
Yeah.
now they feel really compelled and empowered to do this to the rest of us. And there's virtually no way this isn't going to have an adverse impact on every single person living in the country. There's just no way it's not going to.
No, it isn't. And I'm posting a story right now that goes along with this illegals that I ran across for tonight. That the VA is reportedly, this is from PJ Media, Catherine Salgado reported tonight that the VA reportedly is diverting veterans' resources to illegals. Now, we heard about veterans getting kicked out in New York out of housing so illegals could come in. But apparently, Act for America reported that U.S. Rep. Mike Boss, chairman of the House Veterans Affairs Committee, introduced the No VA Resources for Illegal Aliens Act in response to the report about VA resources going to illegal migrants. And I'll tell you, that is wrong. Our veterans just get kicked to the curb, I feel. And that is not the way it should be at all. And so, and to have veterans kicked out of their housing for illegals or funds that should be going to them, this is just not right. It is so wrong. And then they have also said, well, should we allow these illegals to serve in our military, and they would get for citizens, for a pathway to citizenship? I say hell no. Why do you want lawbreakers in our military? Because everybody that's coming across the border is a lawbreaker.
Mhm. Right, right.
Period.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's this whole thing around, cultural assimilation. I mean, we're probably, if not the only, one of the only countries on earth where we're bound together not by race, color, or creed, but by our agreement to adhere to the Constitution. I mean, the document, and all that goes along with that. And we have people coming across who don't have that. They weren't educated in it, haven't grown up with it, don't know what it's about. And so what's going to happen is they're going to wall themselves off in their own enclaves. If they're non-English speaking, that's even more likely to happen. And so you wind up with this uh, is amalgam of people who are unassimilatable, and that never lasts. I mean, that was essentially the reason for the collapse of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, all those empires that form that way. They eventually fall apart. The Soviet Empire, right? Same sort of a thing.
Hmm.
At a minimum, you got to have a common language, and you got to have a common culture. And we cannot assimilate that many people that quickly. Um, that's probably the biggest
No,
reason.
and
Yeah.
in fact, to that point, you had another story, that something about how many the illegals that have come into America equals the population of how many states?
I was like 17 states.
17 states,
Almost
you
3 million.
know?
And that was just last year alone, illegals. And
Well,
that is
this year,
yeah,
2023, right?
2023. I'm sorry, right?
Yes, this
2023.
year. We're still in 2023. I mean, I know we're just days away from 2024, but that's huge, because on some states only have 3 million, 4 million people. Well, hell, I think this year it's something like 10 million people have come across the border. When you have 250,000 in 1 month,
Mhm.
250, 280,000 in 1 month, um, it's just astronomical.
And what it will do, it will overwhelm the social safety net. So you think about things like public schools, right? You know, they're going to be in public schools. The resources that will need to be given to them to English as a second language classes, the resources required to do that, the housing, the resources required to support that. All of those things are going to be impacted that, and those that are already citizens that are reliant on those things, they're going to be harmed the most. And this is usually how it works. Which, of course, I think that's the strategy of the progressive left, anyways, is to create division. And what better way to create division than to bring in a group of people that don't speak the language, that are
Yeah.
competing for the same resources as others in that same scenario? That's how you wind up with, well, riots, to be blunt, and
Yeah.
racism and all the other things that they really want to happen. That's
True. So Bobby, yes, the VA is doing that. And Lori is the current fad to do whatever they can to piss us off. Quite frankly, I think so. As before we started tonight, Don Anderson and I were talking. It really seems like it's a coordinated effort, things that are going on, all over America and the world, quite frankly, of attacking Trump, destroying our Constitution at every way, shape, or form they can. Um, the wars, the wars that are going on. There's so many things, and another coordinated effort could be in this article from PJ Media by Kevin Downey Jr. He says synchronized anarchy question mark.
mhm,
Pro-Palestine Marxists hit JFK and LAX.
mhm,
That's on each side of the United States.
mhm,
And yes, they tried to impede. Well, at JFK, they absolutely impeded the traffic trying to get into JFK Terminal 4. But at LAX, they dispersed it very quickly. They arrested a bunch of people. They had riot gear on and said, "You're not shutting down LAX."
mhm. Yeah,
And I'm glad to hear that. But I do think it is a concerted effort.
Well, there's no question about it. You think about something as basic as the border. I keep going back to that one because it's so simple that we would have an administration that is
Yeah.
just allowing people to pour across the border. And the same thing is true of law enforcement, that you would have an administration that supports, or multiple administrations, the reduction of police in the areas that need them the most.
Yeah.
There's no rational explanation for that other than you want violence to increase. That's the
That's
only explanation.
that's a fact. Absolutely. And this is the thing. And Bobby just said I saw something about being prepared for tax within. When you have so many people crossing our borders that come from countries that have no regard for human life, they just as soon slit your throat as look at you. And like the woman, the two people that happened to be on vacation that got stabbed. Where were they? In New York at the
Oh,
subway?
Grand Central Station.
Yeah,
Right.
Grand Central
Yeah.
Station.
And that's the fomenting again by this administration of an atmosphere that makes people feel like that there's this race war going. It's like they want to create it. So the people who are I'll call it the fringes of society is kind of similar to pornography thing. You put it out there all the time. The percentage of people who are going to act on that is a small percentage, but they can create a tremendous amount of damage. People watch those videos and they go out and act on it. The same thing is true of this sort of thing. You start peeling off the people who already are mentally unstable, and you give them just enough energy and information around that, they go act on it, and that's precisely what happened here. A guy who probably should have been not probably should have been in prison, had a prior record, goes out and did he stab or did he try to stab?
No,
Uh,
he stabbed
he
those two
actually
women.
stabbed a couple of
He
like I think they
did.
were teenagers. They were teenagers, two teenage girls.
Teenagers from South Africa that were
Right.
here, and he said he wanted to get all the whites, and he stabbed
Mhm.
these two white chicks.
Yeah.
Here,
That's,
visitors to New York.
well, there's your national conversation, right?
Right, right.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's
Where's,
it's crazy, and
where's the irony in the fact that they came from South Africa 40 years ago? They were the ones being accused of racism.
oh yeah, oh yeah. I'll tell you, with the whole apartheid and everything there. Wow, 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 wow.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, and so with that, all of us have to have situational awareness of everywhere we go,
Mhm.
and just paying attention, um, and be alert,
Mhm.
be alert. I just think that's for all of us to do is a smart thing to do.
Sure. No, absolutely. We're kind of, I don't want to use the term brave new world. I don't want to sound apocalyptic about it, but we're living through a time period where essentially I don't think it would be hyperbole to say that we've experienced a coup of some sorts, a soft coup, if you want to call it that. And who knows who's running the government? It's very clear that the president isn't.
Yeah.
Um, and the people that are don't have our best interests at heart. And that's very evident by what we see around us. And so, yeah, I think we're going to have to be ready to take up your own safety. Let's put it this way: relying on the police may not be the thing to do by itself. You're going to have to be eyes in the back of your head.
Yes,
Every single one.
and the same thing of, if you have a medical emergency, it might be better to just drive the person to, you know, get help driving you to the hospital instead of calling for the ambulance because the ambulance might not be around. There's so many ways that we need to be self-reliant and self-sufficient
Mhm.
that we didn't necessarily have to be, 5 years ago.
Sure. Well,
But
and you raise a great point too, like trust in the institutions. I mean, that we used to trust. I mean, would you trust the medical establishment given what they did to us in the last 3 or 4 years? I, I'd be very cautious of them too. You need to have some knowledge before you just trust yourself to them.
it's true. It's true, you do. Speaking of some knowledge, I got one here that actually Kevin posted it in our where we post links of
Mhm.
stories, things we might want to talk about, and I had no idea of this, and it's about Netflix
Mhm.
and a program called Cocomelon, and it is cartoons for kids, and I personally don't have Netflix because I don't want to support the left financially or anything. And in fact, I'll tell you, I'm hard pressed to ever go to a movie. There's just, I go to movies that have been made by conservatives and try to support things that are along that line. But apparently, this program called Coco Melon is that you get on Netflix is transitioning babies. So they are using this cartoon to transition babies with Coco Melon. I never heard of Coco Melon, but I see it's a cartoon for kids. And so, parents, grandparents, you better think about it.
Well,
You
I tell you,
better think about it. You know,
I remember hearing, I'm not sure if many of you in the audience remember a woman by the name of Phyllis Schlafly. Do you remember Phyllis Schlafly, Sonny?
yep,
Yeah, I
yep,
remember her back. So she was probably a middle-aged woman back in the days when I was in college. She was very conservative and talked about things like this and watching what they put on TV. And I kind of blew her off. I was kind of just a college kid figuring it out, right? But yeah, she's like, slippery slope. Yeah, right, right. Older woman, whatever, right? And now
right,
I'm at this age now, and Phyllis Schlafly died a couple of years ago. And I'm realizing, man, she was spot on. And she
right.
called this stuff out. Because I remember when my kids were small, we're talking like probably the late 90s, early 2000s, and my kids got the Disney Channel on. You figure that's safe, right? Disney Channel. And then I wasn't paying attention. Then I overheard the two teenage girls talking about
Yeah,
getting breast implants. Right now, this was on a children's show directed for children, and two teenage girls are talking about their breast implants. I couldn't believe it. Now that seems pretty mild
what?
now. Yeah, that was clear back in like 98, 99. Um,
Wow.
that was like clearly that was the beginning.
Yes,
And look at
yes.
where we are now. We wish that was all they were doing.
Right? No kidding. No kidding. So, Haley, I'm glad we helped to enlighten, because that's why we try to talk about different things on this program that's not in the mainstream news, to bring some heads up and bring awareness to people. So I'm glad, and I had no idea. I thank Kevin for posting that.
Mhm.
And so we look at, there's four of us, that do our program here on Captive Audience, and we go to many different sources looking for things to bring awareness about and to talk about, and that was just one. So
Yeah. Or just what we used to call community standards, the lowering of community standards. Because if you keep your eyes awake and aware, think about the things you see now that are commonplace, but they've gradually done that to us. I'll give you another example. I was in a hotel room, probably I used to travel a lot. It's about 15 years ago. And I'm just casually surfing through sports and trying to find something to watch. I'm by myself in the hotel room. And I come across this TV show. And it looked interesting. I watched a little bit. And there's a scene where two women go in the bathroom, and one's at the counter doing whatever she's doing, making her hair. The other one goes in the stall, and then they proceed to show. Now they didn't show what she was doing in the bathroom, but they showed her pants come down underneath the stall. And I thought to myself, that's like it was another one of those moments. That's why are you showing us that? Oh,
suggestive.
yes, it's like the gradual reduction in community standards. They keep
Yeah.
doing little by little by little. Now you consider that no big deal, but at the time I thought that's kind of like you know, you know what value did that bring?
Right.
He was another one. I thought this is you just keep your eyes open, you'll see this stuff. It was a Botox ad, but instead of the usual where it's like a woman getting Botox or whatever, right? This time it's guys getting Botox, right? For their face. So it's normalizing things that weren't normal 20, 30 years ago. So it's the pick, 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 pick. It never stops. Never stops.
Definitely trying to force some changes upon us, and so now we are like the Miss Shaffley.
Yes,
Right.
that's exact. Now I'm yeah, exactly. Phyllis, ode to toast to Phyllis. You were right and I was wrong.
Right, exactly, and you're going, oh, that older generation, what do they know? Well, no, here we
Mhm,
are.
right. Well, I think it was, I can't remember. I think it was Chesterton. I might be mixing it up, who made this statement. be when you don't tear down fences without knowing what they were there for, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's what we're seeing, and we're seeing the end game of all of that. You start reducing these standards, and pretty soon, you know, things just go off the rails.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've got something that's a little bit different. North Carolina. So right now they're trying to keep Trump off of the ballots, and thankfully they've gotten to, I don't remember what state it was today that said nope, he's going to
Mich-
be on the ballot.
Michigan.
Well, here is one that North Carolina Election Board unanimously in a primary ballot decision, Joe Biden is he's the lone Democrat. So no matter who else has filed, Joe Biden's your only choice if you are a Democrat.
Now, see,
And I
yeah,
don't know if anybody else has filed to run against Joe. I don't pay attention to the Democrat politics, really. Although I do, they've kept JFK Jr. off the Democrat. He had to run as a third independent, I guess he's running.
yeah. I just saw Lieberman. I don't know if you remember that name from way
Yeah.
back. Lieberman was trying to run. They kept him off. Um, and Bernie, they keep
And
keeping
Bernie. Oh, yeah.
Bernie. It's like if you're a Democrat voter, you ought to be really angry. I mean, they basically have eliminated your right to select the candidate that you'd like to select. And on the conservative side, they've done this, they're trying to do the same thing
Yeah.
by keeping
Oh, JFK Jr., not
yeah, no,
RFK.
RFK, right? RFK doing it, but trying to keep Trump off the ballot. Whether you like Trump or not, it's really irrelevant. It's 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 about as un-American a thing to do as you can get.
Well, it is. If a person files to run for office and they have met the requirements and they've paid or they've got the signatures to get on the ballot, they should be on the ballot. It is not the party's it should not be the party's decision of you can't be, or a state's decision for that matter. We have qualifications for a person to get on the ballot, and if they reach those qualifications, let it go. What are they afraid of? Well, we know,
Well, we know
right?
what they're afraid of.
We know what they're afraid of.
What they're
So
really
here you
afraid
have
of.
North Carolina, and it surprised me. It
Mhm,
surprised me that they're doing that,
mhm,
but
yeah.
North Carolina
Well,
is going, nope.
you
And
had a
it's
whole lot of
10
North.
weeks
Uh,
for Super Tuesday for North Carolina.
mhm. Well, they're all products of the university system. That's where these judges come from.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we
Oh,
see what
yeah.
the university system has made. We just saw three of the heads of the most prestigious universities in the country who couldn't bring themselves to call terrorism terrorism. Um, that's who's leading these
Right.
universities.
Right. Well, hey, speaking of that, I'm going to post a story here right now that is a little bit of a follow up with what is happening with Harvard. So, this is from the Epic Times, and Austrian business school severs ties with Harvard over surging anti Semitism. Now, this is billionaire founder and cosmetics heir Ronald Lauder,
Mhm,
Estee Lauder
mhm.
Cosmetics, earlier suspended his own support of the University of Pennsylvania. And now he has severed ties with Harvard University, that saying we're not doing this. This is over the anti-Semitic rhetoric on the campus, over the Israel-Hamas war. And Lauder Business School is located in Vienna, Austria. And it said in a statement earlier this month that the decision to end its partnership with Harvard was meant to show support for Harvard's Jewish students. So I applaud them for doing that. And this is where the president, the Gay, Miss Gay, she should be stepping down because she is costing Harvard billions of
Well,
dollars.
that's at the end of the day, that's what these people respond to. So let's not get confused with them suddenly finding that they're ethical, because it's not going to be about that. It's going to be about how many dollars this is costing them. I think we talked about this in our last podcast. Enrollment's down like 17% this year. Um, And remember, enrollment was that number was in place before this stuff, right? Because
Yes.
this stuff was only recent. This stuff only recently happened, which tells you that people were already withdrawing from places like Harvard because they're realizing that their students aren't learning anything of value. This is just going to be gas. This is like an accelerant. It's going to be really interesting to see what that percentage looks like in another 4 or 5 months. So people are recognizing, and the other thing too is if I go to a school like that, now I've got to go to employers and explain myself. Who wants that on their resume? And I paid all that money for that. So,
Right.
and then on top of that, the woman's been like 30 accusations of plagiarism, which is a death sentence in academic circles. She should be gone just for that.
She
Um,
should be. But now she's threatened, Dawn. And actually, David and I talked about this yesterday, but she has threatened now that if they dismiss her, she will sue them. And I
oh,
say,
well,
on
sure.
what grounds? On
Yeah.
what grounds? For plagiarism? I mean, that is the ultimate,
They'll
and also
sue.
costing
She will
them billions.
sue for racism. We all know that's what's going to happen.
Of,
the
of
reason she's
course.
not, the reason she hasn't been fired is she black. Look who got fired. It was the
Exactly.
white one.
The white one.
She didn't have enough checks on her box. She was missing the box.
Right. She wasn't gay. She wasn't trans. She was only
Right.
white.
She was just white. You got to get more checks. Sorry.
Oh
That,
my
that's how the
God.
progressive left works.
Well, it is. And it just shows it to us more and more and more. So I really appreciate when the billionaire class says, you know what? I'm out. I'm out.
Mhm.
I'm not supporting you anymore. And and this is a good thing. That's a
And I'll
good
tell you,
thing.
the other incredible thing about this is, and we'll see where this goes, but after blacks, Jews have supported the Democratic Party at a higher percentage than pretty much any other population group, and for reasons that are absolutely confounding to me. Maybe this was the 2x4. They need to get over the top of their heads to stop doing that, and that's a wealthy class of donors that they've owned for I don't know how long. And these people have been hating on Jews for the last 50 years. Remember the comments that Jesse Jackson made back in the 80s and Farrakhan back in the 80s? The Democratic Party supported all of that. Uh,
Yes.
so just maybe they'll stop doing that. Um, we'll see what it's going to be very interesting to see what the polling is this next election in terms of how Jews vote and change their voting patterns and how blacks change theirs. Because if there's any two groups that have been like just destroyed by the Democratic Party, is those two groups, and they keep voting for them.
It's floored me that the Jews have been in backing Democrats. It has floored me for a long time. I'm baffled by it. I don't understand why they would be aligned that way. There has to be, and I'm going to guess it all has to do with business. The bottom line is the dollar, the contracts they might get, business they might get. I don't know. I truly don't know.
Well, I think another, and hey, and this is pure, we're in speculation land, right?
Yes,
So
we are.
we're amongst friends, we can speculate a little bit. I think it has to do with a good part of it has to do with the more educated the group becomes, the more left wing you become. Once
Mhm.
you get degrees beyond that master's degree, PhD, because those people start thinking they're smarter than everybody else, and everybody else should do what they say, and they can change the world. And you just see that throughout. The most educated people in the world are the most dangerous people in the world, in general. Um, and look at what's happened to our university system. This rot we're seeing, by the way, started there, and it permeated the high schools and elementary schools and the rest of society. Um,
Yes, it has. Yes, it has. And so, and then, I was looking through some stories this afternoon, and again ran across the headline that in the head of Black Lives Matter in some state, I don't remember what state, he's supporting Trump now. He goes, I've had it with the Democrat Party. you know and people all over are hip hop stars, and there's a lot of black community that's well known that is flipping for Trump, and I'm really happy to see it.
And I think what it is it's theoretical to talk about what will happen if you reduce police from a neighborhood, right? And a lot of people just don't get it until it hits them in the face.
Yeah.
And when you remove them, now they're getting hit in the face with that. You talk about food deserts. Stores like Target and Walmart pulling out of these neighborhoods. There's literally no place to buy your groceries because there's no police around to
Yeah.
enforce the law. And so criminals run rampant and these places can't make money. These neighborhoods are just being destroyed by that. And these are almost without exception, the Democrat run areas. You name the city, if it's a train wreck, you know a Democrat's running it. And so
Yeah.
those people they're living the result of those policies. And that will cause you to rethink what you've been voting for.
Yeah. And so Bobby says it was Rhode Island. So he was the head of Black Lives Matter of Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
Okay.
you very much, Bobby. I
Sure.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
I need all the help I can get. Let me tell you.
Yeah. And sometimes people got to be hit over the head with a 2x4. Remember a couple of months ago, there was I can't remember where she was a congresswoman. I want to say in New York, someplace like that, Pennsylvania, where she had been advocating these no police, reduce the police policies. And then she got carjacked and like beaten to a pulp right in
Oh,
front of her
yeah.
kids. And then she's out the next day out of the hospital room talking about how we need to like increase police.
Yeah.
See,
I
it's
remember
all,
that. I
it's
remember that.
it's all theoretical till it happens to them.
Yeah. Hey, well, listen, I've got a few. Do you have some other things for us there, Don? Or,
Well, that's good enough for now. Go ahead.
okay.
You had a few things.
So I've got a couple of things on election.
Mhm,
And this one is in the Epic Times. And a man has been indicted on 140 counts for alleged voter fraud scheme in New York. The case was uncovered when an in person voter discovered someone had allegedly requested and submitted an absentee ballot in his name. So, a Queens man has been arraigned on a 140 count indictment, accused of orchestrating an extensive voter fraud scheme during the 2022 Democratic primary election, the county's district attorney announced. And his name is Abdul Rahman. He's 32 years old, and he stands accused of allegedly submitting 20 fraudulent absentee ballot applications in August of 2022 during the Democrat primary. And so it's falsifying business records in the second degree, falsifying business records in the first degree, criminal possession of a forged instrument, offering a false instrument for filing in the second degree. So he's got a boatload of charges against him, and I'm glad they found somebody, right?
mhm,
And yet here in Oregon, I have heard of people. I can think of one case that somebody had their ballot rejected. They said, "No, you've already voted."
mhm,
And I think if you go into that county, if something like that were to happen, and you go into the county's elections office, and say, "Show me that ballot. Show me the envelope that came in,"
mhm,
because it might have already been opened. I don't know. Okay. But let's say it hadn't, the envelope hadn't been opened yet. And you could go to that county elections and they would be able to pull up that envelope and then see if, in fact, that was legal or not.
mhm,
And so I thought that was good. Another one is the Milwaukee District Attorney ignores 354 referrals for possible registration fraud from the 2020 election. So apparently, hundreds of same day registrants were allowed to vote in Milwaukee without having their possibly illegal addresses verified in the 2020 presidential election, and they want to just ignore that.
yeah,
Oh, there's no problem here.
yeah, yeah. This election fraud stuff is just, it's truly over the top. I mean, it really does seem to me that this whole thing needs to go back to paper ballots. Because it minimizes the ability to do damage and cheating on a big scale. In fact, I think you might work. I think maybe you were going to speak to this. It's a change in terms of what Portland's proposing, in terms of
Yeah.
their structure and how they vote there. But one of the things I was going to add to that, when you get into that, is they're looking to have all of that be electronic, which to me, it just that just spells danger zone to me.
Yes, and I'll tell you, it's something that with our elections, we thankfully here in Oregon, it's all on paper. But there is a system that does electronic adjudication that personally I think that should not happen, just so that it can absolutely be verified of who did whatever ballot adjudications to a ballot, and that should all just be on paper. And
Hmm.
I'll tell you, and yes, I agree. And you know what? I agree with in person voting and with ID. You can't do anything in
Hmm.
America, or let alone around the world, without having an ID. But here we vote without ID. You don't have to, you can fill out a voter registration form and have no identification, have no social security number,
Hmm.
and you will still get a ballot.
I tell you, there's something. I remember
That's
being
wrong.
in, yeah, I remember being in grade school, and my mother and father hopping in the car and driving down to the grade school to vote. I remember that. And I hadn't thought about that in years, but there was a something civic minded about that, where you got together, everybody went down to the local public school or local library or whatever it was, and you physically voted. And the fact that you took time out of your day to go do that meant that you were more engaged, which meant that you probably thought about the things you were going to vote about.
Yeah.
Um, and there's value in that. One of the things the radical left has done a great job is pounding into our brains how awful it is that the rate of voter participation is low. I don't think that's bad at all. The people who don't vote don't care. The people that don't vote are uninformed. They shouldn't vote. The
Right?
people that are, yeah, the people that are engaged and thinking about it should vote. And if there's a hurdle to vote, and that hurdle is walking your fanny down to the local school, if you don't want to spend 10 minutes to do that, you shouldn't be voting. And the only exception to that should be people who are serving overseas, that sort of thing, or people who are in a nursing home situation, can't get around, right? Everybody
Right.
else needs to get their fanny in the car or put on the tennis shoes and walk down and pull the curtain back. I remember watching my parents go do it. You think about it, it makes a lot of sense. There's a psychological reason why you'd want that. It's
Yeah.
another way to participate in civic life. And too many people spend their life in their house looking at a computer screen, never talking to anybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's good to go back to those ways. I truly believe it, but Oregon is the place where mail-in voting started. We were the test case for America, and then COVID brought it
Hmm.
everywhere else. And, many states have changed their laws that have raised the bar, thankfully, that no, we're not going to do mail in voting. And, you can get the bars high for having absentee ballot and whatnot like that. And you do have to vote in person. Some places have said that, you need to have ID. And I'll tell you, a lot of nations in the world have, you have to have ID to vote. A lot of nations, and yet here in America, no. This is the a way of election voter fraud, and not having clean voter rolls. Not having clean voter rolls is another way as well, and it's so sad that with the majority and the Democrats in the majority, um, that this is how we've got here in Oregon. And
Well,
yet everybody should want free and fair elections
yeah, it's
to
it's
have
not.
what's best for our state and our nation.
It's an opportunity to disenfranchise the
Yeah.
voter. And you
Yeah.
shouldn't care about that, what side of the aisle you're on.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of people get so wired into their party, their candidate, they lose sight of the bigger picture. Historically, we all went to the polls and we all understood. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. If you lose, you go back to the drawing board and figure out how you can win better the next time around. All of that
Yeah.
seems to be taken out. And that goes back to rule of law and basic ethics and morality, all of which have been destroyed by the politics of the progressives over the last 30 years. It really, all of this stuff always, you hear me say this all the time. At the end of the day, it all comes back to basic morality, right and
Yeah.
wrong.
It does. And so I want to address something Lori has said. Oregon doesn't even offer any in-person sites as far as she knows. That's what she's written. Actually, you can go down to your county elections office and vote in person there. You can take your ballot, fill it out, and drop it right at the county elections. And people that haven't received a ballot, but they're registered to vote and they haven't received it, they can go to their county elections and say, I didn't receive my ballot, look me up and whatever, and to get their ballot, because maybe something happened, maybe it got stolen out of your mailbox. I know, like, I'm seeing in the town that I live, on the outskirts of town right now, a lot of people's mailboxes are getting hit and their mail stolen out of there. So, anything could happen, quite frankly. So I think so you can do it at the county elections office. That's the only place that I know of that you can do. So, hey, I have a couple other things, but we're going to save that for Friday. And everybody, Friday, we are going to have a year in review and who knows what else. Okay, so on Friday. So it's going to be myself and Don and David. Kevin so far has said he's busy, he can't make it, but you stay tuned, you never know. And we've also asked Jeff Reynolds to join us. We don't have it confirmed yet.
All
So
right.
Friday we're going to have a special year-end review. That'll be the 29th. So there we are. That's what's happening.
Of
Okay,
course, it's
so
it's going to be impossible to cover all that stuff.
so we're going to cover some other stuff, that too. So anyway, we're going to have a special on this Friday. So share the message and we'll see you then.
Absolutely. Well, it's always great to see you all on Wonderful Wednesday. Take care and looking forward to seeing you on Fantastic Friday. How about that?
Yes, it will be Fantastic Friday. Thank you, everybody. Good night.